Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's your favorite history teacher back at you again with another historical video. And today we're going to be talking about, I wouldn't say something near and dear to my heart, but as you guys know, I did take a Russian history class in college. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, the Russian Civil War, all that mess. Let's get into it. All right. So we've already finished World War I, but now we're going to go backwards and kind of talk about the changes that were going on in Russia still during World War I. All right. So that was your warm-up objectives. We're going to identify how separate revolutions at home affected Russia during the war and after they withdrew. We're going to discuss the impact of V.I. Lenin and the Bolsheviks had on the Russian political sphere. We're going to analyze the costs and results of the Russian Civil War. And we're going to learn the beginnings of the communist Soviet Union. All right, so where are we at though? We're still in Europe. It's like we've been here almost the entire time. And this is Russia. This is Russia at the time of World War I? Before World War I? At the end? I don't know. These are new German states, so I imagine this is like right at the beginning of World War I. Anywho, so Russia pre-World War I believe that's why I have that map. It's pre-World War I. Russia, the Russian Empire stretched from Eastern Europe to the Pacific Ocean. Russia was slow to industrialize despite its huge potential. You had landowning nobles, priests, and an autocratic czar that controlled the government. And the majority of the population were peasants, which we kind of already described about in the nationalism unit with Russia. So as Russia began to industrialize, a small middle class and urban working class began to emerge, kind of how it happens. If you remember from the Industrial Revolution, those were the two new classes that were created. Extra credit, right? Anyways, the unrest is too real. After the revolution of 1905, Tsar Nicholas II failed to solve the political, economic, and social problems the country had. The first Duma, remember, Dumas are like local government systems. Wait, no, those are Zemstvas. The Duma is like parliament. The first Duma had no real power. Moderates are going to push for a constitution. Nicholas blocked at all attempts to try to limit his power. He was not ready for him to turn into a constitutional monarch. And he's going to rely on the secret police to impose his will, aka what would become the KGB. Marxists tried to ignite a revolution under the proletariat when the time was right. Remember, the proletariat is the working class. World War I and its impact. So World War I fueled Russians with national pride. They dashed to the battle lines with enthusiasm. And like the Crimean and Russo-Japanese wars, it quickly strained Russian resources. They were badly equipped, they were poorly led, and they're going to die in staggering numbers. Remember, trench warfare did not happen on the Eastern Front. In 1915 alone, casualties reached 2 million. 2 million people died in 1 year for the Russian military. So to regenerate morale, Nicholas II went to the war front to lead because, you know, there are stories throughout history, kings fighting other kings because they were on the battlefields, you know. as far back as probably what, the 13th, 1400s, right? Is Henry VIII was at the front lines with his battles against the French, all right? But kind of since then, kings kind of took a step back, like, I don't need to be in this. I don't need to risk my life, But Nicholas, thinking, I need to boost morale, I need to improve my soldiers' well-being, I'll go to the front to show them that leaders still show up. And that proved to be disastrous in the end. He left his wife, Alexandra, the Tsarina, to lead the domestic affairs. She is going to rely on advice from the self-proclaimed holy man, Gregory Rasputin, and of course, they're going to have an affair. The Tsarina believed he had magical powers after he helped her son, who had hemophilia. If you know what hemophilia is, it is where your blood does not clot like normal. And so like you could lose a lot of blood. And Rasputin helped. And since he's a self-proclaimed holy man, she's like, oh my God, you saved my son. Let me sleep with you. And basically she kind of folded and gave the reins of the government to Rasputin. And he is going to bring corruption to the czarship, leading the Russian royal family, the Russian government, because, Rasputin's not going to forget the homies that helped him get to where he was. So he actually put his friends in places in power. And fearful for the Russian monarchy, Russian nobles did not like what Rasputin was doing, so they had him killed. 1916. They tried to poison him, and the poison didn't work. So then they shot him because can't be too sure. So this is Rasputin. Now, if you go ahead and watch this YouTube video, it is the Just Dance song of Rasputin. I don't know if I can really show a YouTube link on YouTube to be watched on YouTube. So go check out this link. It's really fun. If you listen to the lyrics or watch the lyrics unfold as the person dances, it's a pretty cool song, and it explains Rasputin's rise and fall. Abdication. So after this, the monarchy is basically going to collapse after the disasters on the battlefront, and there are food and fuel shortages on the home front. Marchers were mostly women, clamored to the streets demanding bread. Soldiers are going to refuse to fire on demonstrators, and that's going to leave the government helpless, because if you're not going to follow your overseer, what real power do you have? So the Tsar is going to step down and abdicate. The Duma is going to set up a provisional government, and they prepared a constitution while still in the war. They're still in the war, people. Revolutionaries are going to set up Soviets, which are councils of workers and soldiers. The Bolsheviks are going to take charge under the leadership of Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, aka Lenin. And these are known, both of these, the women marching and then the Tsar stepping down. These are known as the March and November revolutions of 1917, are actually known to Russians as the February and October revolutions, because Russia at the time used an old calendar, which was 13 days behind Europe. So Talk about being backwards. They even had their calendars wrong. So Lenin and his squad, like I said, his real name, Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, born 1870, and he adopted the name Lenin during the revolution. His older brother was hanged for plotting to kill the Tsar, and they forever branded his family as a threat. That's why he changed his last name. So he's going to always hate the Tsars. You killed his brother. So Lenin read the works of Karl Marx. He's going to spread his teachings among factory workers along with some socialists, where he met and married his future wife. For trying to spread these ideas, he would be arrested, sent to Siberia. Then he would be released in exile to Switzerland. And there, he's going to go full communist. And he's going to work tirelessly to spread his revolutionary ideas. Remember that picture? That's Lenin. And that hairline is my future. So Lenin applies Marxist ideas. I believe this is the test question. So he adapted Marx's views to fit Russian conditions. You know, Marx, as we know, Marx predicted that the industrial working class would overthrow capitalism, right? Well, Russia really didn't have a large urban proletariat. So he's going to call for an elite group to lead the revolution. And there is the main divide. You know, you got to have the strong working class overthrow the bourgeoisie and take control of the means of production, blah, blah, blah. And here, there isn't a very large working class. So he's going to call on people who he believes to be competent to lead this revolution. This revolutionary party represented a small percentage of socialists. Lenin called them Bolsheviks, which means majority. So it's kind of a play on word, you know, like too short. And he's like tall. It's what is that, an onomatopoeia? Bolshevik, meaning majority, but this is only a small percent of socialist. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anywho, in Western Europe, Western, some socialists believe that socialism could be achieved through gradual and moderate reforms, and an opposing party called the Mensheviks liked this route. Slow and gradual. The Bolsheviks, however, of course, I just said a rival party, they dislike it. To Lenin, such gradual reforms were capitalist tricks to suppress the masses. Only revolution could bring about needed change. All or nothing. So March 1917, still in exile, Germany plants the seed of destruction and sends Lenin on a train back to Russia in hopes to weaken the country. Smart play, Germany. Because he's going back to Mother Russia to take it over. Lenin had the help of fellow Marxists, Lev Leon Trotsky, and L and B. Lenin and the Bolsheviks promised to the people of Russia peace, land, and bread. You have a man named Kerensky. He led the provisional government after the Tsar abdicated. It's going to fail. Largely due because he tried to continue the war effort and ignored land reform at home. And people are tired of being landless and losing relatives due to the war. And it's straining the economy. Russians, tired of war, at the battlefronts, will desert and leave. Peasants are going to want land. City workers are tired of all these shortages. By November 1917, remember October and February, by November, you have the Red Guards, which are factory workers, mutinied with the sailors attacking the provisional government. Lenin's forces overthrew Kerensky's government in a matter of days. Moscow was seized by the Bolsheviks after a week of fighting, And Moscow now became the Bolshevik capital, and the Kremlin, its HQ. The Kremlin is another term like the White House is for America. The Kremlin is like the Capitol building in Russia. So what were the Bolsheviks' policies? They ended private ownership of land, give land to the people. Of course, they distributed land to the peasants. I just said that. And the workers were given controls of the factories and mines. Well, it turns out Marxist policies actually did come true, somewhat. A red flag entwined with a hammer and sickle symbolized the union between workers and peasants. Millions now thought they had gained control over their own lives. So Bolsheviks, or later we call communists, would soon become their masters. Kind of like, you could say, the Latin American revolutions led by Simón Bolívar, if you can think all the way back to that unit, where the peasants thought they had gained control of their own lives for being free from the Spanish. And actually, it was all the rival factions that were trying to compete for power. Now that the Spanish had left their countries, they wanted to take them over. So, yeah, look at that. Connecting Unit 3 to Unit, what are we in, 6? Wow. So the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. After the Bolshevik Revolution, Lenin sought peace between Russia and Germany. That was probably one of the agreements why Lenin was sent back to Russia. Is once you take over, let's make a peace agreement. And yeah, so he no dummy. Russia signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in March 1918, and as we learned, it gave up a huge chunk of its territory and population in Eastern Europe. The cost of peace was high, but the communist leaders knew that they needed all their energy to defeat the enemies at home, because just because the Bolsheviks were a small minority party taking over the government, other people thought it wouldn't last. But yeah, they gotta take care of problems at home before they can go back on the war front. So that's why he signed the treaty. And Russia's withdrawal affected the outcome of World War I, but you kind of already learned that. All right, so red versus white. And no, I'm not talking about wines. So for the following 3 years, Russia would be enthralled, entwined, included in what? Russia had a civil war. And on one side, you have the Reds, or the communists. On the other side, you have the whites, which are counter-revolutionaries, the Mensheviks, Democrats, and the old Tsarist imperial officers. The Allied powers are going to support the whites in hopes to overthrow the communists and help fight Germany. And it did not help at all. It helped the Reds, the communists, call for nationalism to get rid of all foreigners. So if you weren't for the revolution, you were anti-Red, you are against us, let's get rid of you. And there would be a small Allied invasion, I believe, of British, and I want to say some French troops. I think they tried to invade through Gallipoli over there, and that was a big fat no. And that's only going to piss off the communist distrust of the West, like, hey, man, stay out of our problems. Let us solve it. So, war. Pretty simple. It's a civil war. Bad things are going to happen. The whites will slaughter and capture all the communists. The Reds, however, are going to capture the royal family and kill the Tsar, the Tsarina, and the 5 royal children. Get rid of the entire family so no more Romanovs can exist. And I believe that is where the popular cartoon movie Anastasia, because Anastasia is the supposed daughter that got away. And so they made a movie about it. The Reds used terror against the whites, but they also used it to control their own people. They set up the Cheka, aka the future KGB. They would kill ordinary citizens if they were suspected of actions against the revolution. So if you did anything anti-revolutionary, anti-Bolshevik, anti-communist, you could possibly get killed. You don't know who's watching you. So Lenin and the communists are also going to set up forced labor camps called gulags, and that's only going to grow even more under Stalin. And Lenin is going to turn to war communism, which they are going to take over banks, mines, factories, and RRs, railroads. And it's almost like the whole fruition of communism and Marxism being applied to Russia happening. Peasants in the countryside were actually forced to give up all the crops they grew to feed the soldiers and the hangry people living in the cities. So Trotsky, for the win. Trotsky is going to lead the Red Army. He's going to be Lenin's right-hand man and become an effective fighting force. He used the former Tsarist officers under the close watch of commissars, where Communist Party officials were assigned to the army to teach party principles and ensure party loyalty. Loyalty, loyalty, loyalty. He gave passionate speeches and roused soldiers to fight. Also, which would rouse the soldiers to fight, is the order of shooting every 10th man if your military unit underperformed. So that's another incentive to like battle good, fight. And the position in the center of Russia gave the communists the advantage. The whites were forced to fight from all sides. And as we learned from World War I, fighting from all sides and later World War II is not a good idea. The whites didn't cooperate effectively and they were easily defeated. That's Leon Lev Trotsky. You don't need to write this down, even though it's in red. I found this picture and I just wanted to show it. So Russian deaths including World War II from 1917 to Stalin's death in 1956, or I think it's 1953. Russia in World War I, 1.7 million casualties. The Russian Civil War, 9 million people. And the Soviet Union during World War II lost 10 million people. Under Stalin from 1924 to 1953, 20 million people died. Although that could be a low estimate. They're as high as 50 million. Crazy. And people think Hitler is worse. So you have now in Russian history for this small period of time from, you could say 1922 to about 1989, 1990, Russia is no longer called Russia. They are called the Soviet Union, the USSR. Okay, let it be known. So the USSR stands for the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in English. Lenin faced the enormous problem of rebuilding the state and economy, reconstruction of the Russian state. In 1922, Lenin united much of the old Russian Empire into the new USSR, or Soviet Union, like I just said. Communists are going to produce a constitution that was both part democratic and part socialist. They set up an elected legislature called the Supreme Soviet, and that's going to give all citizens 18 or older the right to vote. All political power, resources, and means of production belong to the workers and the peasants. And the multinational state made up of, and it was a multinational state made up of both European and Asian peoples. So you thought, you thought wrong, thought right. I don't know what I'm saying. So there's a test question where I ask you if, you know, is it true communism in Russia through Lenin's leadership? And it is, because it differed entirely from theory. The Communist Party reigned supreme, not the workers. And just like the Tsar, the party used the army and secret police to enforce their will upon its people, and not being a communal utopian society of socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it. No, it's the Communist Party, those elite people that Lenin called on to lead the revolution, and his supporters, that political party will lead. And that is why it is so different from the communist theory of Karl Marx, because Karl Marx said the workers would rise up and take control and create a communist classless society. You have a political party who just replaces the Romanov, the royal family as the true leaders. We could probably have an argument in the comments, but I'm not going to do it. So, yeah, if you have a problem with that, email me. Anywho, Russia, being the largest of the Soviets, dominated all the other Soviets because, you know, it's big. Wait, capitalism in the Soviet Union? What? So Lenin retreated from war, communism, economic policy because that almost collapsed the economy. In 1921, Lenin adopted the new economic policy, test question, which allowed for some capitalist venture. The state still controlled banks, foreign trade, and large industries. However, they did allow small businesses to reopen for private profit. The government stopped squeezing the peasants for grain. Under the net, peasants were held onto small plots of land and freely sold their surplus crops for that money. And Lenin's compromise with capitalism, you could argue, helped the Soviet economy. He saw it as a temporary retreat from communism. However, his successor would bring Russia back to pure communism. So in the struggle for the power. So Lenin will die in 1924, and that's going to set up a power struggle between Communist Party leaders Lev Trotsky and Joseph Stalin. And this is aptly depicted in the American novel Animal Farm. So if you've ever read that book, it is the allegorical story of the Russian Revolution on a farm. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it yourself. Trotsky was a brilliant Marxist thinker. He was a skillful speaker and architect of the Bolshevik Revolution. Stalin was the opposite. He was a shrewd political operator. He worked behind the scenes, organizing, pulling some strings. He wasn't out in front of everyone. He was the behind the scenes, kind of creepy, kind of sus kind of guy. And they both differed on their future of communism. Trotsky wanted a worldwide support for revs versus capitalism, and that was seen as radical, not like, oh, rad, bro. No, like that's radical, that's crazy. Trotsky wanted the worldwide takeover. Stalin, seeing that that's a lot, and we don't know if Lenin really wanted that. Stalin's going to concentrate on building up socialism at home before taking it to the worldwide sphere. That was seen less radical. That's Joseph Stalin. We've already seen Lev Trotsky. Stalin's Soviet Union. I believe, is this the last slide? I think so. Eventually, Stalin isolated Trotsky in the party in 1929, stripped him of party membership. He's going to flee the country, and he would still criticize the Russian government abroad. In 1940, Stalin sent a secret agent to Mexico and had Trotsky assassinated. And Lenin said this about Trotsky, and Lenin said this about Stalin before he died. Comrade Stalin has concentrated an enormous power in his hands, and I'm not sure he always knows what to do, how to use that power with sufficient caution. So he's predicting Stalin's going to be out of pocket. Stalin will use his ruthless measures to win dictatorial power. Dun, dun, dun. That's Joseph Stalin. And I have another video to show, which I really can't show because of the YouTube video, watching on YouTube, to be watched on YouTube. I don't know how to do it. Don't want to get, blocked. So check this out. This is if you've ever seen or heard of the epic rap battles of history, this is the season finale, and it's Rasputin versus Stalin, who's versus Lenin, who's versus Putin versus Putin. And Gorbachev, all 5 of them. It's a very unique video, and if you want to watch it, you can watch it. But yeah, it's if we were in class, I would have shown it, and it would have been all fine and dandy. Hold on a second. I don't know what your homework is. Hold up. Wait a minute. Good thing I have my textbook right. Sure. Hold on. Put you up. That's okay. Your homework is to complete page 381, 3 through 6. All right, that is your homework. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. I do like talking about Russian history and the takeovers and all that stemming from the class I took. But hey, enough about me. But if you did like it, smash that like button. As always, if you did enjoy, and as always, stay safe, wash your hands. Peace.